History is full of strange arrangements that changed real lives in ways textbooks barely mention. These 8 stories begin with one odd fact and end with a much bigger consequence. A World War II deserter was said to vanish into a pigsty, and the story stretched all the way to 1985. The setting was the war and its aftermath, when desertion could leave a person cut off from ordinary life. A pigsty was not comfort, but it was a hidden shelter, close to animals, straw, and the farm's daily noise. Because the hiding place stayed part of the record until 1985, the Wartime Act did not end as a private secret. Later, the real account became the basis for A Place with the Pigs, and the pigsty stayed with the story. After her divorce, Winifred Llewellyn James had to check in with police before traveling more than 5 miles from home. Her name was Winifred Llewellyn James, and the rule applied after her marriage ended. The limit was only 5 miles, or about 8 kilometers. To go farther, she had to report to a police station first. The station became a checkpoint for movement, not just a building on a street. That meant divorce did not automatically bring independence. Even after leaving a husband, her travels still depended on permission and a police desk. So the road beyond home was still marked by a station door, a register, and a 5-mile line on the map. In Harlem, a Methodist church had a boxing club downstairs. The ring was in the basement, under the sanctuary. That church was Salem Methodist Church. In a dense neighborhood, its property could serve more than Sunday worship. The basement offered a practical indoor place for organized boxing. A club could set up a ring, keep order, and train away from the street. So the church basement worked as both sanctuary space and sports space. Upstairs, worship continued. Downstairs, Harlem residents gathered around the ring. That arrangement turned church property into a neighborhood meeting place. A basement ring, a folding bench, and Salem Methodist Church all shared the same address. Charlotte Bronte's first novel was published after she died, so her debut reached readers as a posthumous book, not a living launch. Brontë was a Victorian-era author, writing in a world where a novel usually moved from desk to printer while the writer was still alive. Here, that normal path did not line up. The key detail is the gap between writing and publication. The manuscript waited, then entered print only after her death, which makes the first book a posthumous debut. That delay changes the career map. Instead of a first novel opening her public life, the book arrived when readers already knew her name through memory and print. So the story ends with a manuscript becoming a legacy after the writer is gone. On the page, a first novel can begin as a private stack of paper and finish as a published book. Agostino Stefani missed the 1709 premiere of his own opera, Amor Vien del Destino. The stage opened without its composer. The opera was set for 1709, but Stefani was not in the theater. He was in Rome, far from the premiere. His work there was mediation between the Pope and the Emperor. That mission, not the opera, set his schedule. So the premiere went on without him. A composer's desk could wait, but the diplomatic meeting could not. That choice leaves a vivid image, an opera in motion, while Stefani stayed in Rome with Pope and Emperor business on his hands. In 1968, John H. E. Bayer helped start an architectural firm built to resist urban redevelopment. That is an unusual reason to found a design office. The city was changing fast, and redevelopment often meant clearing whole blocks at once. Architects were being asked to imagine replacement from above. Bayer co-founded the firm in 1968, and its thinking was shaped partly by the death and life of great American cities. The book argued against bulldozer-style planning and for streets already full of life. So the firm stood against top-down redevelopment and treated a city block as something to understand, not erase. Planning became a debate over corners, sidewalks, and the people using them. That left architects arguing over a single block, not just a skyline. In the end, the fight moved from paper plans to the street corner. A Dutch civil servant was sent to Saudi Arabia during the Second World War. His job was not about trade or travel. His name was Daniel van der Meulen. Before the war, he had served as Dutch consul in Jeddah, working with the Dutch East Indies and the Hajj pilgrimage. That background mattered. In wartime, he was sent to urge Arab nations not to ally with Nazi Germany. The mission was diplomatic and strategic, not ceremonial. It carried the war into the Arabian Peninsula, far from the front lines. Van der Meulen's work linked Jeddah, the Dutch East Indies, and a global struggle over alliances. The paper trail begins with the consul's office. John F. Kennedy turned to a fast food entrepreneur to help with restaurant desegregation. Not a senator, not a judge, but a restaurateur with grease on his hands. That man was Harry Akin, founder of the Nighthawk restaurant chain. He also served as mayor of Austin later, which gave him both business and civic credibility. Akin had already backed racial integration and equal opportunity hiring in restaurants. That meant he understood the counter, the kitchen, and the hiring list as political ground. So Kennedy could use Akin as a practical bridge between policy and daily service. Restaurant desegregation was not just a law on paper, it reached the dining room door. In that setting, a counter, a payroll sheet, and a serving tray carried the weight of public change. Akin's name sits there beside Kennedy's, in the language of restaurants. Those were the kinds of turns history rarely teaches first, but they matter. If you want more overlooked stories with real consequences, subscribe and tell us which one surprised you most.